Hello, welcome to a special edition of Bars to Bricks Ministries. As tonight we will have on special guest, private investigator Heather Michelle Cohen. She will be joining us here shortly from Tennessee, and we will hear what Heather has to say about the case in Gary Wayne Sutton. Heather is the private investigator that has been hired by the family, and she is working the case. She is a wonderful, wonderful person, amazing singer. In fact, that's why she went to Nashville. Um, Let me just, I guess I'll just put it like this: she's just a badass. She is completely She is like a bounty hunter. She's a private investigator, and like I said, she's a badass. She's on the television show Secrets, Lies, and Private Eyes on Investigative Discovery and Discovery Plus. If you've seen that show, you probably know who Heather is. If you don't, you'll recognize her here when she comes on, and you'll know what I'm saying. She's not one to be reckoned with, I don't think. I'm glad she's on our side. Hopefully, she'll be hopping up here really quick. Let me message her. And see where she is at. But we have made some progress. You guys that are here. Hey Teddy, how you doing? How you doing? Lev, Kev, whatever. Anything but late for dinner. Hey, and here is Heather.
Hi. Sorry, I'm in the field right now doing some work, so I
Hey,
apologize.
that's okay. We appreciate your time, Heather. This is such a disturbing case,
It
and
really is.
I I just can't even fathom, and the stuff I've uncovered in a week that all these attorneys. I'm a jailhouse lawyer. I'm not even an attorney,
Right.
licensed attorney, and I uncovered this stuff in a week that they didn't in 31 years. I mean, there's a problem with that.
I agree. I agree. Um this I've been working this case now for a couple of years, and I mean, the more I find out about it, the more appalled that I really am. And the question is not, because I've had, when I talk to like state reps and attorneys and stuff, they want me to cut to the chase about what's wrong with this case. And I tell them, I'm like, I can't tell you in 2 minutes what's wrong with this case. I said, because the real question is, what is right with this case? There's nothing right about this case.
Right. Yeah, and that's exactly what I was going to say. It'd be easier to say what was right because
Mm-hmm.
all the way down to the beginning to his uh, inexperienced representation, to the jury being tainted, to the um, the list goes on. That the judge picking the jury, and it's insane. I'd never heard of a judge picking a jury before.
Right. Well, I okay, so I don't really know. I don't know so much that the judge, it was that they had asked for an expert to help them
Hmm.
do the jury selection. I'm sorry if I keep popping out. I keep having to respond to messages.
No, you're
Um
fine.
but they had hired an expert to help them pick the jury, and then they had this jury in place, and then for whatever reason they decided they didn't want that jury. They wanted a different jury. They didn't like the jury that the expert chose.
Right.
So I mean, that says something in and of itself, I think.
Oh yeah, and it's just that's my sister. She said Heather, she's a badass. Been watching her all weekend.
Oh. All right, cool, thanks. Hi sister. What's
But
sister's name? What is sister?
Shannon,
Shannon.
Shannon.
Hi Shannon.
Uh-huh. Yeah, but I forget. Yeah, on the mobile, it's kind of hard to see the comments and stuff sometimes, even when I pop them
Oh,
up on
yeah.
the screen. But
Here, I'll pull the chat up.
so
Okay.
I know. Can you tell people about like how you came into the case and what you found?
Okay. Well, I was hired by initially, I mean, Gary is my client, but I was brought in by his fiance, Carolyn, and she got a hold of me, and I really can't remember like the details about how or what like how she found me or anything.
Right.
But
well, she told me that Carolyn said she Googled the best private investigator in Tennessee, and you popped up.
Oh my God, are you serious? I didn't know that.
Yeah. So
sorry.
Yeah. Oh no, you're fine. And for guys that are coming in now, Heather's kind of working right now, so
Yeah.
she's in the field, but she's finally been able to join us. So we're gonna let her.
I've had to reschedule a few times because I'm working. I'm like, okay, I'll do this. But I'm gonna be in the field and I might be a little distracted, so I apologize.
Yeah, that's okay.
But yeah, so Carolyn had gotten a hold of me. You were asking, how I got brought in and how, what I've found so far. When she brought me in, I know the first thing that I really started doing was, looking for the jury, going out and trying to interview some of the jury members. And there were a couple that were deceased, but the ones that were still alive, I found all of them. There was one that wouldn't talk to me, which I found, really strange. One of the jury members, actually, a couple of the jury members were just very, very sweet. And a couple of them actually expressed that they had some regret. They didn't feel right about things. This one particular jury member said that she was actually pressured to sign the death sentence conviction. And she said she was the last one to sign it, and that one of the other jury members, a male, had just really pressured her and said, well, what if this was your daughter? What if, and just kind of got in her face about it. And they really pressured her. And another one of the jury members said that there was a woman that was rushing them to sign the guilty verdict, and she was getting mad because she wanted to go home, and so she was pushing everybody to sign the guilty verdict. We know that they drove. A couple of them mentioned how they were being driven by the crime scene on their way to and from the hotel every day, which they had to have gone out of their way to do. I mean, there was just so much, that was just wrong. And I mean, at that point, like, that was kind of the first thing that I was uncovering. But at that point, it was like, okay, so, but as I went on, it's like, it just became more and more gut wrenching, more and more appalling how it all unfolded. And can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So from there, and I do need to mention also, I'm missing a jury member. There were 12 listed, but when I went to one of them, she told me, she said, I wasn't chosen. I was dismissed. I was dismissed because I knew Dr. Bass. He's the medical examiner that testified, that contradicted Dr. Harlan's testimony. Yeah. Well, she knew Dr. Bass, so she was dismissed, but her name was on the 12 juror members, and I never could find out so there's one jury member that I never even figured out who they are. So there's that. And then from that point, I started going and looking for some of these key witnesses like Barbara Gordon and Jason McDonald. Barbara Gordon had testified that, regarding the white truck.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when I
truck,
went to
Bronco, Blazer, truck with a topper, truck without a topper, long bed truck, short
yep,
bed truck. Yeah,
yep, like
several different.
the statement was changed
Yeah,
multiple times, you know, and then, you know, until it finally matched the description that the prosecution wanted it to match. But and then don't forget that her son actually got up and testified
that
that
she,
that she
right,
had been sitting on the porch with the detective, and that the detective, you know, and the judge asked the son, "Are you calling your mother a liar?" And he
mm-hmm.
said, "No, my mother," you know, and I'm paraphrasing. I'm not trying to quote because I don't
Right,
remember exact words, but he said something to the line of that, no, my mother's not a liar, but she was convinced that this is what she needed to do to put a bad man behind bars in order
right.
for them to get their conviction. So when I went and met with Barbara Gordon, Miss Gordon told me that she had lost sleep, that she prays every day that if he's innocent, that he'll be released, that she had actually lost sleep worrying that it was her testimony that sealed his fate, and that her testimony is why he is now on death row. Like, that bothered her so much to think that her testimony may have played a part in that, because what she told me was
Oh,
that they put it forth that that James Dillinger's white truck was the vehicle that she saw, and that she never was sure.
well,
So
yeah,
when
I
I
was reading her statement, even the review of her statement, and they were cross-examining her about the inconsistencies and everything, and even her. I told Carolyn, I said, this sounds so scripted, because she's started making excuses for everything and went into all these details about the tires, and then didn't even have it right from what the tires were on
no,
uh, James's truck. So I mean,
right,
it's,
because James's truck had the Dodge emblem on them. That is
yeah,
not mentioned anywhere. She describes them as mutter tires,
yeah,
and James Dillinger had small tires, and the small tires had in the rim had the Dodge emblem, and that was never part of the description. When I went back to her after I learned that our alternate suspect, Lester Johnson, also drove a white Dodge
oh
truck.
my goodness, and he's got such a violent history from before, at the same time, and after these crimes. I
Right.
mean,
And we'll get more into Lester Johnson. We'll talk more about him. But I want to
yeah,
get through this part of it first about the truck, because so we knew that he drove a Dodge D100. We knew
mm-hmm.
that from the motor vehicle report, but nowhere did it say the color of the vehicle. So I went down to DMV and I'm trying to see, do you have record? Can you tell me? They didn't know. I finally found somebody. He was a law enforcement officer that knew Lester Johnson well. And I asked him, do you know what kind of vehicle that he drove? And he said it was a white Dodge truck. And I said it was white. And he said, yeah. And he provided me with a sworn statement, a declaration that that's what Lester Johnson drove, was this white truck. Well, when I took, now I didn't actually have a picture of his truck, but I took, you know, year, make, and model, you know,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, and got a stock
Right.
picture. And I took it to Barbara Gordon. I went back to her and I said, could this have been the truck that you saw? And she said it could have been. She said, just like I wasn't sure then, I'm not sure now. But that's a problem. I mean, that's a huge problem.
Well, yeah, because that's their star witness. I mean,
Right.
that was the one that linked that, and
Mhm.
that's such a, there's so many flaws in those witness statements. That just,
Absolutely. Absolutely, there is. So, you know, and moving, I mean, there's just so much. I feel like even just sitting here trying to
yeah,
put everything, you know, lay everything out for you right now, like there's so much that it's overwhelming to try to like remember everything. And I know I'm going to get off this podcast and I'm going to remember something I should have said, I should have told
sure.
you, because there's so much. Um, but you know, Barbara Gordon didn't know. Okay, so then we know that the night that Tommy Griffin went missing. Now I say that because we don't know for sure that that's actually the night he died, even though they want to say it was. It's questionable. Although with what I've uncovered in my investigation, it really wouldn't make a difference. I still feel, even if it did happen that night, that Lester Johnson is the more probable perpetrator here.
Right.
But and it's very conspicuous because we have a statement, and now this statement was obtained by James Dillinger's defense team, which was the Nashville Public Defender's Office. They obtained a affidavit, which is part of their filings. Like, it can be found. This is public information. In the filings that they actually filed, in James's defense, because they actually were doing a pretty damn good job. Poor Gary, like he got a shit team.
Day one all the way. Yeah.
But James's defense was actually going out there and trying to, prove his innocence. And so they had obtained this statement from Marianne Husky. Marianne Husky was Lester Johnson's girlfriend at the time. And so Lester had been in jail pending a trial for cutting a woman's throat. And while he was in there, he was issuing death threats to the witnesses through his son, Shane Thornton. Shane also provided a statement to the Nashville Defender's Office, and for James's defense team. He's committed suicide. He is no longer with us. But before he killed himself, he provided a statement to the Nashville Public Defender's Office, and actually some copies of letters that he had gotten from his dad, giving him instructions about what to deliver to who, and what threats to issue. And Johnson says in one of these letters, he says, I'm facing 40 years. If I'm convicted of 40, if I'm convicted, then I will be going to prison for 40 years on this day. You need to make sure that this woman does not show up to testify. And he says, tell her, put in big bold letters, fucking snitch at the top, and, blah, blah, blah. And pretty much he's telling people, like, in so many words, you show up, you testify, you're going to die. Like, I'm going to come after you. I'm going to come after your family, And he had also threatened the DA in that case, the prosecutor, General Clapsaddle. And Clapsaddle had given a statement that Lester Johnson was I think she said the most, but I'm paraphrasing and I don't want to, take anything out of context. But it was to the lines of that Lester Johnson was the most dangerous criminal that she had ever tried to prosecute. Like, she had to have security protection because he was threatening to kill her. So tell me how this man who just issued all these threats walks. No charges. Nobody shows up to testify. Who would? Everybody knows this guy's batshit. They're not, they know he'll kill them. Or if he doesn't kill them, he's got people on the outside that's going to do it. So nobody shows, and he walks. The charges are dropped, and he walks out of that jail on the same day that Tommy Griffin went missing. Marianne Husky picks him up from the jail, and this is the statement that she provided to the Nashville Public Defender's Office. Marianne Husky picks him up from the jail and drops him off in Sevier County before sundown on the day that Tommy Griffin goes missing. So I don't know. That right there to me. Okay. So, Gary and James always maintained that, yes, they did bond Tommy Griffin out of jail that night. He went to jail for public intoxication. It was after they left the bar. They were at the bar. They left. They ended up going separate ways. Tommy ends up getting arrested. Well, the arresting officer in his report talks about how Tommy seemed scared. When he arrested Tommy seemed very afraid and would not tell him what he was afraid of. Well, common sense tells me that if he's acting afraid, it's probably because whoever he's afraid of or whatever he's afraid of is there. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And in this report, he's talking about that Tommy is with two older gentlemen, and they're in a dark truck,
Right.
and those two men were never identified. To this day, they've never been identified that I know of. If they were, it's not anywhere in any sort of record.
Yeah, I've not been able to find it either because that's so weird to me because it's like the basic police work when they pull up on it, they get everybody's name.
Right.
And, if you're
It's
there,
very
your
suspicious.
name is going in their little notebook,
Right.
It's just that, yeah, there's so much that,
So we know that Tommy Griffin's trailer was set on fire while he was in the drunk tank. We know that James Dillinger and Gary Sutton did go bail Tommy Griffin out of jail. That's a fact.
Mm-hmm.
Gary Sutton and James Dillinger have always maintained that, yes, they bailed him out of jail, but he left that jail with a woman in what they thought was a black Ford Falcon.
Yep.
Well, it wasn't. One of the witnesses that I've spoken to is actually the woman that Lester Johnson cut her throat. I've talked to her extensively. I've gotten statements from her. She knew who that woman was. And she said it was not a Ford Falcon. It was a Ford Fairlane. Huh. That vehicle was from a chop shop owned by someone that they called Colton, I think. And she said that man would let different women, I guess, that are giving him sexual favors or whatever, he would let some of the women drive the vehicles. And it's a stolen vehicle. Well, she told me the names of, there's two different women that she had seen driving that car. Mm-hmm. One of the two women that she named happened to be someone that Tommy Griffin was having sexual relations with. I mean, I don't know, friends with benefits, booty call, girlfriend, I don't know. But he was sleeping with this woman. So it makes sense. And she matches the description. That, the dark-haired, heavy, all that. So she matches the description that James and Gary gave. It was dark. So I think that had it not been dark, they would have been able to identify her. It's dark, they're looking, and so they see a dark-haired, heavy-set woman, but they don't know the car, so they didn't put two and two together that that's who it was. But the woman, she is this particular one that I'm zeroed in on. She is still alive. And I want to speak with her more than anything right now. But so then I took a picture of a black Ford Fairlane to Jason McDonald, because Jason McDonald was the key witness that testified about hearing the gunshots at the Blue Hole. He was
several days after he heard them.
Right. And they said, well, why didn't you call? They didn't. I mean, it's out in the country. People shoot guns, whatever, most people don't pick up the phone and call 911 when they hear gunshots in a small, in this sort of area. But I say this sort of because it's kind of like where I'm at right now. Yeah. But anyway, so when I had gone and talked with Jason the first time, he told me that he had seen a dark, boxy vehicle fleeing the scene. He didn't know what kind of vehicle it was, but he mentioned that part of his testimony was omitted. Like the question was never asked. Now, had Gary had effective counsel and done they knew they weren't affected. They asked to be relieved.
Yeah.
But so we can't really blame them.
Right.
They were our feet were held to the fire. They were made to do what they did. But so I don't blame them for any of this. But Had he had effective counsel and they had done their due diligence and done all the stuff that I'm doing now and whatever, then they would have had the information and they could have asked him, did you see a vehicle? Could you describe that vehicle? That would have been very pertinent information, and it probably would have made a huge difference in the jury's decision, because
absolutely.
it lines up with Gary and James's story.
Yeah.
So I took that picture. Once I went back with a picture of a Ford Fairlane, make and model, same as the truck. I didn't have the exact, the picture of the exact vehicle, but
Right.
at least, somewhat. I took it to him and I said, does this look like the vehicle you saw? And he said, yes, it does. And he has also provided not an affidavit, but a declaration, a sworn statement, that was the vehicle that he saw. So now we've got all this new evidence. And then on top of all that, there's the shit about Charles Harlan, the medical examiner testifies. He's now disgraced. Several of his cases have been overturned. Bodies have been exhumed because it's been proven that he was falsifying, and he was lying on the stand. He was falsifying his reports. And essentially what it is that he was that guy. He was that expert witness that could be paid to say what the hell they wanted him to say.
The hired gun.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. So, gosh, I don't know. I just threw a whole lot at you real fast.
No, that's because there's so much in this case. It's like, people, well, what about this? And so now I'm sure, along with being a private investigator, you're also a bounty hunter. So I'm sure with that, you probably shoot some guns and stuff.
Well, I actually don't bounty hunt anymore. So I haven't done it for a couple of years, but I mean, I can handle a gun for sure, but luckily I haven't had to.
The reason I asked that is I don't know if you've looked at the pictures from the shotgun shells they found mysteriously 2 days later that weren't in that exact same placement 2 days prior where the body was. Exactly. But anyway, those two shotgun shells are laid perfectly side by side.
Yep.
There is no way. That's like a 1 in a billion and something chance. When you shoot a shotgun and those shells eject, they do not land in side by side like that. Those were put there.
Yeah, it's like snake eyes.
They took those. I guarantee you, they took those out of Dillinger's yard and they put them there.
Yep. That's how I feel too. I believe that wholeheartedly. I've said, and I hate to even utter these words, but if they execute him, it's gonna haunt me for the rest of my life. Like,
me too. And it's like I've told everybody, it's like I'm in this till the end, to whatever. I'm going to be by his side, either shaking his hand as we get him out, or I'm going to be there for him, and I'd rather it be the first, Yeah. Because I don't even want to think about the latter.
Exactly. I mean, I've told Carolyn I'll be right there beside her if that happens, but I very much, I hope and pray to God that does not end up being the outcome of this.
Well, and I'm hoping with what we've found, and if we can make some changes, we can get him back in. And and even if they grant him a new trial, they didn't want to separate the trials because they didn't have enough evidence against Gary. So we'll have to let Gary Wayne Sutton go. Okay, so
the prosecutor stood in court and said that.
Then right. So damn it, let's have a trial for just Gary Wayne Sutton now, by golly. And
I think honestly, I mean, that would definitely be a better scenario to the latter, to execution. But honestly, I think at this point, the state, the government, just owes it to him to open those damn doors and let him out, because they have already robbed him of 30 years of his life.
Well, and what's so sad is the state of Tennessee has gone above and beyond, and it don't matter if you're falsely incarcerated for 1 minute or 100 years, you only get
Mhm.
$1 million.
Yeah.
So Gary's only going to get, and people say, well, that's a lot of, well, not really, not for 31 years of sitting
Mm,
there falsely accused. He never got to mourn his best friend. He didn't get to attend the funeral. He's missed out on his daughter's life and growing up. That's not $1 million ain't,
mm.
don't replace all that.
No, it doesn't. But I
Um,
know, I've met Gary in person. He wrote me the most beautiful, heartfelt letter, and it made me cry. And he told me that I've finally given him some hope again. Now he's got you too, so I know
yeah,
that he's very grateful for that. But
that
he said
that's what he
that.
kept saying. But
Mhm.
you and Heather, you and Heather,
Yeah,
so,
because he wrote me this letter and he said, for 30 years, nobody would even listen to me. Nobody cared. And you're the first person that has come along that's actually trying to fight for me. And thank you. I mean, and I say first person, he always had Carolyn. Carolyn is amazing.
right. Oh man, yeah.
She's a wonderful one. I mean, if it wasn't
Well,
for her, I mean, she is the, how do I say this? She is the,
their voice, his voice out
she's
here.
the backbone. She's the
Yeah,
backbone of all this. If it wasn't for
but
her, I wouldn't be here.
yeah,
You
right. I
probably
wouldn't
wouldn't
be
be
here.
here.
Yeah, yeah. I'm
Um,
here because of Carolyn. So it's and some others. We Reverend Jeff Hood is joining in with us, and so we've we just got to get get things going, get some justice. And I don't understand how people can't be just so excited about this case. And what's crazy, when I was going through and looking at, and it didn't even click when I was watching the 2020 thing from 2010. I like, oh, it kind of looks familiar. I think I might have heard about this, but then when I read the article on the internet about it, I'm like, I remember this, and I remember being, I was locked up in El Dorado in prison myself, and I was just furious. And there was so much then, and then to come and actually see the evidence, since the family's getting access to evidence, and or lack
mhm.
of, the only evidence is that Gary didn't do it. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
like, it's absurd. And it's like I told you when we talked on the phone that day, when we first talked, that I honestly, when Carolyn was telling me all this stuff, was like, there's no way. There's this many injustices in a case, and we're in the United States, and he's still sitting on death row.
It's scary that this happens in our
Yes,
country. Like, I
yes,
mean, it's like freedom, equal rights, all of it. It's a facade. The justice system works different for different people.
yeah,
It does not work the same for everybody.
yeah.
And
You don't have rich people sitting on death row.
no, God, no, never.
You know,
You know, I mean, it's amazing.
they
I'm,
might go to prison, but they're not going to
yeah,
go to death row.
yeah. I mean, it's absolutely rare that somebody like Murdaugh would actually be convicted. Um,
I
yeah,
thought about today, and I still might do it. I just don't want no flack from OJ. But it's like, if you idiot people can believe to acquit OJ Simpson because of a leather glove that wouldn't fit him because it had been out in the wetness, and he had a rubber glove, and rubber and leather gloves usually fit tight anyway. Of course, that glove's not going to fit. That was his uh, genius by his defense team. But I
attorney.
mean,
Yeah,
but it's like, you guys bought that, but with all this evidence in this case, and now, even more so, that we see that the autopsy has a date of Monday. So that even blows their timeline of Friday. Everything, their
yeah.
witnesses, everything that they,
Well, the autopsy, said Monday, and I think they were like, well, it just says Monday because that's the day that he was found and whatnot. But then what really did it was Harlan getting up there and testifying that it had happened on Friday. But like it's been said already, by other people other than just me, the fact that he was in full rigor mortis. I'll let you, I mean, that
yes,
you don't stay in full rigor. You don't stay in
nope,
rigor mortis for more than 36 hours
6 hours,
tops.
right? Yep.
So it's scientifically impossible that he had been killed on Friday. But again, like I said, that's not even a big deal to me, because Lester Johnson got to Sevier County on that Friday before sundown.
Yeah.
So it still could have been Lester Johnson, and that's the more probable.
Well, yeah, he had the motive, he had the reason. He's got a violent history. I mean,
Well,
yeah.
let's talk about the motive. Do we want to talk about his motive?
Yeah, go ahead.
So Lester Johnson, what it seems that this is all about, what it all the literally the root of this entire situation, I mean, all of it started with an assault on a man named Michael Vaughn. Michael Vaughn had been run over, had his throat cut, and had been run over and was left for dead. And Lester Johnson was his cousin. And so from what I understand, Lester kind of set out on this mission to get to vindicate Michael Vaughn, because Michael Vaughn was left paralyzed. He didn't die, believe it or not. He did not die, but he was left paralyzed. And so, Lester Johnson goes out to vindicate, and he goes out on this like war hunt, this witch hunt for anybody and everybody that was possibly involved in this attack on his cousin. Well, that's how he ended up with the charges on Tina Hartman, the woman that he cut her throat, because he hunted her down and he asked her, what happened, with Michael Vaughn. Well, somehow or another, Tommy Griffin and Connie Branam both get tied into this. They were actually supposed to be testifying in that trial against Lester Johnson, the one that he walked, the one he was threatening to kill everybody. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Tommy Griffin and Connie Branam were supposed to be testifying and did not show, just like nobody else showed. But then that day, and we know he was threatening everybody. Well, then that day he goes to Sevier County and Tommy Griffin disappears. But like I said, he also cut Tina's throat, and that was because he believed that she was involved. He believed that she was involved in the attack on Michael Vaughn. He believed that she had something to do with it. So she was there. She was there when that happened, and that's a whole other podcast. Right. That's another case. I mean, but it's just all this stuff tied into one, and that's where it all starts. It all starts with this attack on Michael Vaughn. So I don't know. It's just, but it's a mess. And yes, he had motive. That was his motive, that he believed that Tommy Griffin and Connie Branam were somehow involved, and Connie Branam and Tommy Griffin were also being called to testify. And we'll never know. I know that the Nashville Public Defender's Office was trying to get those records from the SBI, the Special Bureau of Investigations in North Carolina, because it happened on an Indian reservation. Oh. So it was the SBI that was handling that case. And they were trying to get those records. The Nashville Public Defender's Office wanted to know, they wanted to get copies of those subpoenas, and they wanted to know why Connie and Tommy were being subpoenaed. Well, when he was found not guilty, they destroyed those records, and there's very little, like, what is left of those records the Nashville Public Defender's Office did get, but there are a lot of things from that file that were destroyed because they didn't feel the need to keep them after he was found not guilty. So it's a mess. It's a mess. It's like there's stuff out there that could just absolutely, undoubtedly clear Gary. And it's like, it's been 30 years. It's gone. Had his defense team done their job, or defense team, or the public defender's office, or whatever, at some point, at any point in the last 30 years, if anybody had done their job. But here I am 30 years later trying to dig up stuff that was readily available to them then, but it's not there now.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so crazy, because that's what I've been thinking this whole time. It's like, if someone had eyes when this case was fresh, mm-hmm. There's just no way but I can't help but wonder that, we talked about corruption. You said I wouldn't believe the amount of corruption they've had in Carolina. I live in a county that's full of corruption. Yes, I would believe. But
Right.
but it seems that Lester seems to be one of those protected ones, and the because even the fact that people didn't show and they dropped the charges, and maybe it's different in Tennessee though too. In a felony case in the state of Kansas, it don't matter if every one of the witnesses don't show up. The police report and all that evidence that's sworn testimony. That's good enough. Uh, you're going to jail still, and
Right.
but and then to see it's like those shotgun shells that and we've heard about Davenport, the TBI agent that was dirty, that was caught lying and all that. It was also involved in
He's
this
still
case.
TBI from what I understand. He's still a TBI agent from what I understand.
And that's just insane.
Yeah.
But those
Well,
those shotgun shells, within the illegal search, those were put there.
right. And
Those
if you
were
read the transcripts, I mean, there's nothing defamatory about this because my God, it's in the transcripts. Like,
right.
they were busted. Both agents were busted lying under oath, both Widener and Davenport,
Right.
because the judge called him out. Widener had lied about having eyewitnesses in order to obtain, eyewitnesses that could place Gary and James on the crime scene. He lied about that in order to get an arrest warrant. Their warrants, I mean, and you have the search warrant for James Dillinger's trailer. I mean, that search warrant was illegal too. Every one of their warrants was illegal. So
they were vague and definitely violated the Fourth Amendment. And I don't know how that was never contested, even by either legal team. I didn't see a whole lot contesting the warrants. And it because there's definite Fourth Amendment violations. And I was researching, and we have had some cases that are really narrow that down in the common person's favor. But since this case, but still, even though there's just blatant violations that it's insane. Insane.
Yeah, I agree. Sorry, I'm watching something.
Nope.
Yeah,
You're fine. That's what I was trying to pause and let you watch. I know you're working, so
yeah, it's okay. It's okay.
We all respect that, understand that. We just, like I said, we just appreciate your time and
and I think another thing worth mentioning also is the fact that his defense team missed a deadline, a very, very important deadline.
Yes.
The public defender's office. I'll let you talk about that. Why don't you? Because you dug into it, right?
Yes. He was granted a new trial, and his supposed legal team that's supposed to be on his side missed filing deadlines, and in post-conviction court it's worse than civil. If you miss something, it don't matter if it's your attorney or whatever, you're beat.
Right.
And
so they screwed him. I mean, it flushed an entire, it flushed his chance to get a new trial, to possibly prove his innocence. It just flushed it right down the toilet,
Yeah. Well, and I found I found some stuff, and I'm not going to go into that because I really don't want to give a show my hand.
Hold it close to the vest. I got you.
Yeah. We can talk. I will be happy to discuss everything I'm doing privately with you, but
sure.
I just I don't want to let some cats out of the bag right now.
Absolutely.
I have found some hope. We'll just leave it at that.
Good.
Good. We've had more hope than probably in a long time, and but it just baffles me. Even the fact that one of the pieces of evidence that they produced in Connie Branam's trial was a TBI statement from the medical examiner that the metal fragment said bullet fragments found in Heather Weaver, and then they were tested, and there was
In
no
Connie
lead, there was
Branam,
no
you mean?
zinc.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah, in Connie
You
Branam's,
took me in careless name.
and it turned out to be her bra clip, but they didn't change that in no paperwork, and that is part of the evidence that was presented to the jury. So the jury sees bullet fragments on an official TBI report. What does that do to a jury? You just tainted that jury. They never found no bullet in Connie Branam. They never determined a cause of death. In fact, it's more likely that it was suicide. And but that just taints the jury's mind. And then, in the Blount County case, in the voir dire of the juries, the members, they're talking about, oh yeah, they're familiar with some of the case. They know they were convicted in another county for something else. Automatic dismissal. You're tainted. You got to go. They didn't ask for change of venues in this case. And back in 92, it would have been a lot easier to get away from media coverage than it is today. So, because today it's courts are kind of like, well, everything's everywhere, so don't matter where you go, it's going to be on the news. And and yes, Sierra, I agree.
I'm actually reading the comments right now too. I haven't had a chance to do that yet. Hey, Sierra.
Yeah, I've been trying to pop them up, but they're moving tonight. It just. Well, go pee, Adam. But and we're at Aussie prison stories. That's Adam. He's from Australia. Harvey Talks Prison. I was looking. I saw a little biography on you today, and saw you're from Missouri. Harvey is actually from Missouri. Judy, that's in here, she's from Missouri. She was actually a Missouri State Prison sergeant.
Okay. And, very nice. Very nice.
Yeah, so you have some fellow Missourians in here.
Oh yeah. Well, I was about to say Rock Chalk Jayhawk because I was always a KU fan, but I guess that doesn't really work with Missouri. But how about Go Chiefs?
Yeah. There you go. Yeah, that one definitely goes with Missouri, doesn't it? Especially lately. But, it's disheartening, too, of how much neglect all around, from all the way down from law enforcement to detectives, all the way up through
all of it.
The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, the courts, the legal system in all facets, the prosecutors, the defense has failed this man and this family, and the family of, let's not forget the family of Tommy Griffin and Connie Branam.
Right. Right.
They
and
deserve justice.
I know they're not happy with what I'm doing. I know they're not happy with really anyone that's trying to help Gary. They're very, they're bitter about that. And I understand because, they thought they had their justice and now here we are saying, no, this isn't right. They just want it to, they just want to move on. I get that. And my condolences to them. If you guys are watching, my heart goes out to you.
And absolutely. And that's by any means, we're not trying to hurt the family in any means. In fact, if anything else, we're trying to help the family find the right people, because Gary isn't the right person.
Right.
And unfortunately, it's too late for his uncle. He's already passed to natural causes, but Gary's not the right man. They don't have the right guy. And
that's right. That's right. And Gary is a victim in this too. He has also lost his life. And so there's a lot of victims in this.
And his daughter.
Right. And his daughter and his friends and
grandkids,
his fiance. The people that love him
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's what I was saying when I had Carolyn on the other night. When you weren't able to make it Wednesday night,
Mhm.
Carolyn came on and stuff. And like I said, this woman knows more than Gary himself or God that this man is innocent.
Yeah.
And so it's got to be a
Well,
nightmare
she
for
was
her,
with him.
even.
He had an
Right?
alibi, but
Yeah.
he had an alibi, but they just thought that that they were lying. That and you know what? It's crazy because Tina Hartman, the woman that had her throat cut, that gave me all this other information, she was at Waffle House that night and she saw them there. Um, and I mean, she told me like a very extensive story about that night, and she remembers it because she found out later that Tommy had gone missing on that night and whatnot. So it's stuck in her head. I mean, because you wouldn't remember some random night hanging out at Waffle House unless there was something
Right.
significant that happened on that
Right.
day. And
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
was. And since there was something significant that happened on that day, it always stayed fresh in her memory. She always remembered, her, what she was doing, who she was with, who she saw, and just, everything that happened at Waffle House. It was the early morning hours after the bars had closed, and Gary and James and Carolyn and I think one other person, they were there, and she saw them. So, I mean, it's like, but they just dismissed that alibi. They just, I
Well,
I don't
yeah.
know. It's
Yeah.
sick. It makes me
And we
sick.
We have a comment, Jamie Rupert. Is there a hint who really committed this crime? Any other suspects? And yeah, Jamie, we talked about that a little bit prior when this replays, but I'll touch back if anybody hasn't been watching. There's a guy named the name of Lester Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
He had motive. He had reason. He was seen in Sevier County. There's just everything leads to him, and he's one of those that he was on some serious charges himself for slicing a woman's throat and still walked. So,
By
you
witness,
know,
by threatening the witnesses, none of the witnesses would
yeah.
even show up.
And it's important to note that Tommy and Connie were supposed to be witnesses in that case. And yeah, it was not explored.
I mean, I think, and this kind of gets in, I want to be clear, what is, factual and what is just my opinion. But it is my opinion that Lester Johnson, the reason why he was so protected, it has to do with, the drug trafficking. That what it all boils down to is Lester Johnson knew too much about too many people. And because there were law enforcement and potentially political figures in that town that were involved in a pretty big drug ring, allegedly. And this was part of a statement that I received from one of the witnesses that gave me like firsthand information about some of the corruption and some of the people involved. And you just, I don't want to go throwing out these accusations publicly, but it's pretty, if if it's true, it's pretty damning. It's pretty bad.
Well, I forgot to tell Carolyn this morning, but I was on Harvey Talks Prisons channel last night, and one of the comments after it aired is somebody actually is from that town and remembers wasn't that a brother and a sister, and so I
Mm-hmm.
I responded to their comment yes, and I invited them to come on to talk about anything they know. It'd be just to see what the general public in that area has heard all these years, and then what their reaction is going to be when we show them the evidence.
Mm-hmm.
That's like, man, look, it's how can you say he's guilty? There's so much that just
That's right.
yeah, Sarah's right, Jamie. You Google Gary Wayne Sutton, you'll pull up all sorts of stuff, and some of my stuff's already coming up on Google. In fact, when I Googled Heather a little bit ago, one of my videos came up because I mentioned her name, but I felt honored that Google feels that I need to be up in their searches. But it actually
That's
does
awesome.
mean something, I guess. But
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's cool. I mean,
but
it's it's necessary. Like, people like Gary, and just really the world in general needs more people like us, and I know there
Right.
are a lot of people out there like us, but there's got to be people that are willing to stand up and be a voice that, will take time out of their day, will, and just give a damn, because,
Right.
too many people, it's like, if it hasn't happened to
Well,
you, it's not your problem. Keep your head down and don't make too much noise and hope they never come after you that way. It's like, but if you go
exactly.
through life like that, it's like, I feel like it's our responsibility as United States citizens to hold the justice system, to hold our law enforcement agents, to hold our political figures accountable. It's our
Right.
tax dollars that pay them. They're supposed to be public servants. They're supposed to be serving us.
Right. Yeah.
And
Not
so,
working against us.
yeah, I mean, right. So when we see them doing things, these investigations with lack of integrity, when we know that, when you have information like this and you know this, you absolutely is absolutely your responsibility to speak up. It's like, if you watch somebody get murdered, like, you didn't ask to be a witness to that, but you
Right.
are, and it is your responsibility to speak up. I mean, people think it's a choice. No, you've been, this responsibility has been put on you by God, and this is a test, and you're gonna have to stand before God someday. And when you
Yeah.
do, if you've got information that's going to clear somebody of something they didn't do, or convict somebody of something they did do, and you don't speak up, then, I mean, you just failed as a human. Like,
Hmm.
we should all be looking out for each other.
Well,
You know?
and that's one thing that, of course, Carolyn's been asked throughout the years, and we even brought up the other night. I said, I'm going to be that devil's advocate. What's to say you're his girlfriend? You didn't lie. And she's like, well, if he killed somebody, I'm not going to
Right.
lie for him. What
Yeah.
happens when I piss him off?
Right. Right.
And
Exactly.
and it just it's insane. It's just
It
I
is. It
it,
absolutely is.
and
Hey,
that's just, there hasn't been anybody held accountable, and that's the thing. And even Dr. Harlan, he got slap on the wrist. It's insane. It's insane. But and I want to point out, not to try to toot my horn, try to toot Heather's horn, but just so everybody knows where me and Heather are at on this. Heather was originally hired by the family. They ran out of money. She is
yeah.
doing this for free. I volunteered, and I'm doing this for whatever donations and stuff. So,
Yeah.
anything you
They
guys,
they took care of me in the beginning, but I've told Carolyn so many times, like, and they'll throw me a little something here and there when they can, but
sure.
they ran out of money, and I've told Carolyn, like, I'm invested in this now. Like, I
Me
am
too.
absolutely invested. I can't walk away from this. I can't walk away from Gary.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna
Yeah. And
keep
then,
doing it. Even
well,
if I never see another dime from them, I'm gonna keep doing it.
yeah, that's the same way with me. It's like I even said in my sermon this morning, I said, I've got bills. I've got bills that are overdue, but you know what? And it may sound irresponsible, but I don't care. This man's life is in jeopardy. And
Right.
I've all side jobs and stuff be damned. I'm going to work this case, and the bills will figure it out. God will take care of it.
Right.
And it's
Hey,
just,
I hate to be this way, but I have got to run.
no, you're good. And it's about that time anyway. I was getting ready to cut it. Thank you so much, Heather, for being here. Maybe we can do it again sometime. I really appreciate it. I look forward to talking to you in the near
I'm I'm
future.
I'm absolutely honored to be working with you, and I'm excited about having you on the team with us to
You're,
fight with Gary.
I'm honored to be with you, work with you. What do you mean? You got the TV show, not me.
Actually, I mean, what is this? This
Well,
is
okay.
cool. This is awesome. This is awesome.
Well, thank you very much, Heather. I appreciate it.
All right.
And um, it's and the family's just amazing too. I've
Mm-hmm.
talked to Carolyn, the brother, and Jimmy and
Jimmy. Mm-hmm.
Gary. Yeah,
Yeah.
and they're amazing, and everybody here in my comments that watch us and support the channels and these other channels. I got some other channels that are going to do some stuff on this too. So, um,
Okay. Well, make sure everybody before you log off, everybody has the link for his petition. We want everybody
yeah,
to sign this.
we've been
So,
pushing that too in the
okay. Okay. All right,
so
guys. Well,
that,
I'll see you later. Thank you.
all right. See
Justice
you
for
later.
Gary.
Thank you.
Okay. Justice
Justice
for
for
Gary.
Gary. Take
Thank
it
you.
easy, guys. Thank you.
You too. Bye.
Yeah, bye. Adam, I might have. I'm flying through. There's so many comments. I've been, but man, that was awesome. So Heather is definitely a go getter. She is amazing. Um, she is a huge asset. I'm glad to be working with her. Like I said, she's a badass. I don't want her working against me. So, um, but let's just continue to get the awareness out here. If you haven't got the sign the petition at change.org, please do so. You there's actually a couple petitions out there. Any petitions you find for Gary, please sign them. It's free. It takes a couple seconds. You can literally help save a life, save an innocent man's life. Thank you guys for watching. Oh, and Gary is too, guys. He is awesome guy, and you look at in his eyes and talk to him on the phone. That I've talked to a lot of killers in my life. I've got over 20 years in the penitentiary, and I've met some killers and all that. And but Adam, you take it easy, buddy. Um, and he is just not that person. Gary is just the kindest, just man. He's that guy that when you talk to, man, we're friends for life, and that even more so. I'm going to get my friend out, and we're going to have some coffee on the outside. Till next time, guys. I love you all. Thank you all for watching. Appreciate all the support. Don't forget to hit that like. If you didn't hit it on the way in, hit it on the way out. If you're not subscribed, please do so. Hit that notification bell so you will get all of the videos, notifications that I put out. If you want more information on Gary Wayne Sutton, you can go to Heartstrings27 on TikTok, Bars to Bricks Ministry on TikTok. On my channel here on YouTube, I have a playlist with Gary Wayne Sutton videos. I think we're up to like 14, 15 videos in there now and counting. So I uncover some of the hard, cold evidence that shows that Gary's innocent. For all you doubters, I, I challenge anybody that wants to say otherwise and can prove otherwise. I challenge you. Come on the channel. We will have a discussion about it. We're not going to argue about it, but we will have a discussion about it and why you feel that way. And I want to hear how you can dispute the evidence we have. It's been great. It's been wonderful. I love you guys. Okay, Jamie. Yeah, and that's. Oh, you're fine. You're fine. It was just I didn't want to interrupt Heather and stuff too much because she was still working. Hey, and thank you, Doc. Thank you, Sarah. You're welcome. Something like that. Whatever. Oh yeah, and there's a talk show tonight here in about half an hour. Um, on I posted a community post on it. It's also on my um, Facebook and all that too. And I will repost another link on my community post. Going to be on a podcast here in a little bit, and I can't even find the information to pull it up. Um, I get way too many messages. It is with Mike Test Entertainment TV. So with Chinchilla Jonasia and private investigator Heather Cohen. Heather's going to be back on that as well. Join us there. There's a call in 516-453-9133. And I will, like I said, I will repost that as well. Thank you guys. I appreciate you guys. Your comments are important, Adam. If I miss them, you're probably not alone. Because they're coming through quick. I'm trying to pay attention to what's said. I apologize if I missed. And yeah, podcast Justice Warriors podcast right here on YouTube, on Spotify. She's on Apple Music. Justice Warriors podcast. That's Heather's podcast. Go support her. Go subscribe to her channels and go support everything she does. I'm trying to catch up these. Yeah, edits they are, and it's like I said. If I missed them, it wasn't intentional, or it had profanities or something in it. If it wasn't appropriate, I probably skipped it on purpose. But thank you everybody too. Appreciate like Sierra said. God bless you guys. I love y'all. I need to run to the bathroom, maybe get a bite to eat before I go on this next podcast. You guys have a wonderful evening. Stay more blessed than stressed. Remember, Gandhi said, be that change that you want to see in the world. That's why here at Bars to Breaks Ministries, we are being that positive change that we want to see in the world. Goodbye.